29 years of marriage ended with a phone call, and 9 days later, I discovered my dead wife had left me a penthouse, a fortune, and one final instruction: never trust the man who would come asking for it. Before I tell you how I turned that man's greed against him, do me a favor. If you've ever believed that betrayal deserves consequences, hit like, subscribe, and stay with me. Because what looked like a grieving husband being easy prey became the biggest mistake Gordon Hale ever made. My name is Daniel Mercer. I was a high school history teacher in Denver, Colorado. My life was ordinary by design. Same classroom, same coffee mug, same 10-year-old Subaru, same house where my wife Evelyn and I had raised our 2 children. Evelyn was different. She was brilliant, ambitious, and private. She traveled often for what she called consulting work. I never pressed her. 15 years into our marriage, she had told me, "My work has parts I can't discuss. Trust me, we're safe, and everything I'm building is for us." I did. After 29 years, trust wasn't blind faith. It was evidence. Then, one Monday afternoon, a police officer called my classroom. There had been a collision on I-25. A silver SUV. Evelyn's license plate. She was gone. The funeral came like a dream I couldn't wake from. Our daughter Natalie flew in from Seattle. Our son Ryan drove from Colorado Springs. We moved through the house, touching familiar objects as though they belonged to another family. Then, 2 days after the funeral, a man in a gray suit arrived. His name was Victor Lang. He was an estate administrator. He placed 3 things on my kitchen table: a deed, a document, and a matte black key card. "Your wife instructed me to deliver these personally after her death." I stared at the deed. Spire Tower. Penthouse 2. Evelyn had secretly owned a 2-floor penthouse for 8 years, and 14 months before her death, she had transferred it directly to me. I could barely breathe. Why would my wife hide a property worth millions from me? Victor only said, "She was very deliberate." That night, I showed the key card to my oldest friend, Frank Dawson. He stared at it, then at me. "Daniel," he said quietly, "whatever is behind that door, Evelyn wanted you to find it." The next morning, I called my attorney. I had no idea that opening that door would uncover a secret powerful enough to threaten a wealthy businessman and give me the leverage to destroy his plan. My attorney, Rachel Monroe, reviewed the paperwork before I went anywhere. "The transfer is clean," she said. "No liens, no disputes. The penthouse was purchased outright." "How much?" She turned a page. "About $2.2 million at current value." I laughed once, but there was nothing funny about it. I was a teacher. Evelyn had apparently been building an entirely different financial universe while I graded essays and taught teenagers about the Gilded Age. Rachel pointed to another name, registered business associate Clara Bennett. I had never heard it. "Talk to her before you sell anything," Rachel warned. Evelyn left something behind. So I went to Spire Tower. The elevator climbed to the 42nd floor. My hands were cold around the key card. The reader flashed green. The door opened. The penthouse was enormous. Mountain views, floor-to-ceiling windows, beautiful furniture. And on the gray sectional sat a silver-haired woman holding a folder. She stood. "Daniel Mercer?" "Yes, my name is Clara Bennett. I was Evelyn's business partner." "For 11 years, she continued. She explained everything. Evelyn had been a corporate intelligence and transition consultant. Companies hired her when boards were fighting, executives were being removed, mergers were collapsing, or regulators were closing in. She operated legally and quietly. The penthouse was her professional headquarters. She loved this work, Clara said, and she loved you. That hit harder than the money. Clara handed me the folder. She prepared this 14 months ago. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Daniel, if you're reading this, something happened and I couldn't explain it myself. I'm sorry for the secrets. Some were necessary, some were selfish. I needed something that belonged completely to me. But none of it was rejection of you. You were always the person I chose." Then came page 4. One name. Gordon Hale. Evelyn described him as a silent investor who had funded some of her earliest projects. His returns had been paid. His interest had been legally terminated 18 months earlier. Then came the warning. Gordon would probably contact me after her death. He might claim he still owned part of the penthouse or the business. He didn't. Evelyn wrote one final line. Do not argue with him. Let him believe you are confused. Then call attorney Marcus Reed. I read it twice. For the first time since Evelyn died, my grief made room for something else. Clarity. She hadn't left me helpless. She had left me a map. And somewhere in Denver, Gordon Hale was already preparing to take advantage of a grieving widower who knew nothing about his wife's business. Gordon called at 4:30 that afternoon. His voice was warm, too warm. He offered condolences, spoke about his long-standing arrangement with Evelyn, and suggested we meet privately. I sent the voicemail to Marcus Reed. Marcus called within minutes. Do not meet him. Why? Because Gordon has done this before. Marcus explained that Gordon targeted estates during the vulnerable period after someone's death. He counted on confusion and emotional pressure to make beneficiaries surrender assets they legally owned. But Evelyn had prepared for him. Marcus had the original agreements. Gordon had invested seed money years earlier. In exchange, he received minority earnings. Quarterly distributions had been documented for 11 years. 18 months before Evelyn's death, the arrangement ended. Gordon signed the termination acknowledgement himself. He has no claim, Marcus said. Then why call me? Because he thinks you don't know. I sat in the penthouse after that call, staring at the mountains. Evelyn knew this was coming. She had anticipated grief, anticipated confusion, anticipated Gordon. And suddenly I understood the smartest part of her plan. She hadn't told me to fight him. She had told me not to engage. That gave me an idea. The next morning, Gordon called again. This time I answered. Miss Mercer, he said smoothly, I'm sorry for everything you're going through. Evelyn and I had financial arrangements that need to be clarified. I understand. I believe there may be assets that were intended to remain connected to our partnership. I let silence hang. Then I said, You're probably right. He paused. Really? I don't understand the paperwork. I'm a history teacher, not a corporate attorney. His confidence returned instantly. That is exactly why we should meet. I smiled. I'd appreciate your help. He suggested meeting privately. I said yes. Then I sent the details to Marcus. The meeting took place in a quiet hotel lounge. Gordon arrived wearing an expensive charcoal suit and the expression of a man who had already won. He placed a document in front of me. This is simply an acknowledgement of your responsibilities. I didn't touch it. What responsibilities? He leaned forward. Evelyn's partnership obligations. I looked frightened, or at least I made myself look frightened. I don't want to make a mistake. Gordon smiled. You won't if you trust me. There it was. The trap. I nodded slowly. I'll need time. His smile faded slightly. How much? 3 days. He agreed. He thought he had 3 days to pressure me. He didn't know I had 3 days to build the case that would make him regret ever dialing my number. That night, Marcus and Rachel met me in the penthouse. We slowly spread documents across the dining table. Every payment, every signature, every termination notice, every email Evelyn preserved. There was no weakness. Gordon had been paid exactly what he was owed. Then, Rachel found something else. A pattern. Gordon had contacted 3 previous beneficiaries after business partners died or retired. In each case, he had claimed there were unresolved obligations. Rachel looked at me. He depends on people being scared. Marcus nodded. So don't be scared. I wasn't. Not anymore. Grief had changed me. Before Evelyn died, I would have avoided confrontation and trusted professionals to handle everything. But Gordon made one mistake. He thought kindness meant weakness. He thought my inexperience made me stupid. Most importantly, he thought Evelyn's death had erased the person who knew how to stop him. He was wrong. The next morning, I called him. "Gordon, I've reviewed the documents." His voice sharpened. "And? I think we should resolve everything properly." "Of course. I've asked Marcus Reed to attend." Silence. Then Gordon said, "I don't think lawyers are necessary." "I do." "You're making this more complicated than it needs to be." "No," I said calmly. "I'm making it documented." That word changed his tone. He canceled the meeting. Then he sent a demand for payment. Marcus answered it formally. Gordon threatened litigation. Then Gordon made his biggest mistake. He contacted my children. He called Natalie first. He told her father was overwhelmed by grief and might accidentally lose assets belonging to Evelyn's business. Natalie didn't argue. She simply recorded the call. Then she called me. "Dad, he sounds desperate." I stared at the recording. For the first time, I felt something close to anger. Not because he threatened my money. Because he had used my children's grief as a weapon. I called Marcus. "Can we stop him?" Marcus's answer was immediate. "Yes, but we need him to keep talking." So we let him. Gordon sent messages. He suggested that I was misunderstanding Evelyn's intentions. He hinted that the penthouse had never truly belonged to me. He offered a private settlement. Every message went into a folder. Every call was documented. Every contradiction was preserved. And then Marcus found the final piece. A clause in Gordon's original agreement. If he attempted to assert ownership after termination, he would forfeit any remaining claims and become liable for legal costs associated with defending the estate. Marcus looked at me. "Daniel, this isn't revenge." I looked at Gordon's latest message. "No," I said, "it isn't. It's consequences." 2 weeks later, Gordon walked into Marcus Reed's office expecting a negotiation. Instead, he found 3 attorneys, a court reporter, and a table covered with copies of every document he had signed. He stopped at the doorway. "What is this?" Marcus didn't raise his voice. "This is the record." Gordon looked at me. For the first time, he seemed unsure. I stood. "I want you to understand something," I said. "I didn't come here to take anything from you." He scoffed. "You already have what belongs to me." "No." I placed the termination acknowledgement on the table. "You gave it away 18 months ago." His face changed. "You don't understand the arrangement." I didn't. I slid another document toward him. "But I do now. Another, quarterly payments. Another, your signature. Another, your acknowledgement that your interest ended." The room became silent. Gordon stared at the papers. Then he looked at Marcus. "This is harassment." Marcus smiled faintly. "No, this is documentation." Gordon leaned toward me. "You're being manipulated. Evelyn hid things from you. She knew you couldn't understand the business. That sentence should have hurt." Instead, I felt strangely calm. "She hid things because she wanted privacy," I said. "But she prepared these documents because she knew exactly who you were." His jaw tightened. "You think you're smarter than me?" "No." I looked directly into his eyes. "I think my wife was." That ended the conversation. Gordon's attorney asked for a recess. Marcus agreed. But the damage was already done. Within days, Gordon's attorney withdrew the claim. Then came a formal letter. He would not pursue the penthouse, the LLC, or any estate assets. He would cover the legal costs incurred defending the claim. He wanted the matter closed. Marcus asked me what I wanted to do. I thought about the first morning after Evelyn's death. 2 cups of coffee. 1 empty mug. A house that suddenly felt too large. Then I thought about Gordon trying to turn that grief into weakness. I had one answer. Close it. No celebration. No humiliation. No dramatic victory speech. Just consequences. Gordon had expected a grieving widower he could frighten. Instead, he found a man carrying his wife's final instructions. And that was enough. Later that evening, I stood alone in the penthouse. The city glittered quietly below. Evelyn's gray couch was still there. Her letter was still in my hand. I read one sentence again. "You've always been smarter than you think you are." I finally smiled. "You were right," I whispered. But Gordon wasn't the only thing Evelyn had left behind. The money changed my life. The lesson changed it more. The full financial summary revealed that Evelyn had built an extraordinary portfolio over 11 years. Investments, business accounts. And the penthouse placed our family in a financial position I had never imagined. But I didn't quit teaching. That surprised everyone. Rachel asked me twice. Natalie asked me 3 times. Even Frank told me I could buy a better car. I kept the Subaru, my classroom, and the coffee mug. I kept the penthouse too. Because it was the place where Evelyn's secret finally became understandable. Her secrets hadn't erased our marriage. They revealed another dimension. It became ours again. Evelyn had been ambitious, private, complicated, brilliant, and she had loved me. All of those things could exist together. Gordon eventually disappeared from our lives. His name became nothing more than a file in Marcus's office. The insurance investigation closed without finding wrongdoing connected to Evelyn's business. The accident remained what it had always appeared to be, a terrible tragedy. There was no secret murder, no conspiracy, no hidden villain behind the steering wheel, just a life ending too soon, and a husband left to understand what remained. I returned to school. One afternoon, a student raised his hand. "Mr. Mercer, does having money make people happier?" The class laughed. I smiled. "No, I thought about Evelyn. Money can make problems smaller and give you options. But it doesn't tell you who you are." The room went quiet, and it doesn't tell you who loves you. After class, I returned to my desk. Sunlight crossed the same window. For a moment, I imagined Evelyn sitting in the back of the room. She would have argued with me. She always did. I would have asked the question I asked the night we met. "What position do you want me to take?" I could almost hear her laugh. Then I looked at the old mug beside my hand. For the first time, I didn't feel the emptiness as sharply. I made 2 cups of coffee. One for me, and one, just for a moment, for her. If you think the story ended with Gordon losing his claim, you're missing the real revenge. Evelyn never wanted me to destroy Gordon. She wanted me to survive him. The best revenge isn't always watching an enemy suffer. Sometimes it's refusing to become the person they expected. He expected a grieving husband he could manipulate. He found a man who trusted the person he had loved for 29 years. And when the paperwork proved the truth, I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to threaten him. I didn't need to hurt him. I simply let the truth stand where his lies had been. That was enough. A year after Evelyn's death, I sat in the penthouse with Natalie and Ryan. We had dinner near the western windows. The mountains were purple. Natalie raised her glass. To Mom. Ryan raised his. To Mom. I raised mine. To the woman who always had a plan. Natalie looked at me. "Dad, do you still read her letter?" "Sometimes. What does it say?" "It says she loved me." Natalie smiled. And she knew me. After dinner, they went downstairs. I stayed by the window. Denver stretched below me, bright and restless. I remembered the day Victor handed me the key card. I remembered Gordon's voice. I remembered the fear. And then I remembered Evelyn's handwriting. "Trust yourself. You've always been smarter than you think you are." I touched the glass. "I miss you," I whispered. But I didn't need an answer. Our children were still here. The memories were still here. Her private world had become something I could finally understand. She hadn't been living another life. She had been building another part of the same life. Ours. That was the truth Gordon never understood. He thought Evelyn's wealth was her greatest legacy. It wasn't. Her greatest legacy was the way she prepared the people she loved to survive without her. The penthouse was valuable. The money mattered. The final lesson was priceless. When someone underestimates you, you don't always need to prove them wrong. Sometimes you simply stay calm until their choices expose them. And when that happens, you don't take revenge. You let karma finish the sentence. If this story gave you chills, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, would you have confronted Gordon yourself? Or handled him exactly the way Daniel did? And remember, some people think revenge is about hurting the person who wronged you. The smartest revenge is building a life they can never take from you.